We would like to start the second part of the program, dialogue session of the 25th Anniversary Goi Peace Foundation Forum. We are joined by the great members of the panel who shared great insight with us, Ms. Hafsat Abiola-Costello, Mr. Nippon Mita, and Mr. Masahiko Uotani. Mrs. Masami Sayonji Chairperson will be joining the panel, and we are keen on listening to all of you. The theme is Making a New Leap Toward Peace. The moderator is President of the Foundation, Mr. Hiro Sayonji. Please join me in welcoming all the members of the panel with a round of applause. The floor is yours, sir. We would like to start this second part dialogue session. First, let me introduce the participants. Joining us once again, the two guests who spoke during the first part. Ms. Hafsat Abiola-Costello, recipient of the Goi Peace Award in 2016. Right next to her, Mr. Nippon Mita, recipient of the Goi Peace Award in 2019. We are thrilled to have all of you. And additionally, we are pleased to have Masahiko Uotani as a guest. Thank you. Uotani-san, let me just after graduating from Toshisha University, he joined Lion and then Craft Japan. Oh, he went to Columbia University and obtained MBA. In 2001, Japan Coca-Cola, he was the president for about 10 years or so. And with NTT Docomo, you were advisor to NTT Docomo. And 2013, he joined Shiseido. And 2014, in April, he became the president and CEO. And January this year, you are now became chairman. So for 10 years. And at Coca-Cola, you were president for 10 years. And for 10 years, you were the head of the organization Shiseido for 10 years as well. So you are an expert in business management. But not just in this business management, you are also very active in other areas. And Goi, you are also a member of the council for the Goi Peace Award, Goi Peace Foundation. So thank you so much. And Sayonji Masami, chairperson of the Goi Peace Foundation, you are also joining us. And I will be the coordinator. So 5 of us will be spending a little less than 1 hour or so. We would like to have a discussion. Basically, I will be asking you questions. But if you just want to jump in, just raise your hand. You can join us. Nippon-san, you asked us if you can raise a question, but this is going to be kind of a free discussion. That's what we want to do. So, Hafsat-san and Nippon-san, in the first part, you already had a chance to talk to us. So first, Uotani-san, Mr. Uotani, you have been a business manager, and the organization's performance grew under your leadership. So looking back your life, what was your belief or principles? Yeah, including all those things, if you would like to share with us your story. First of all, congratulations to Goi Peace Foundation for 25th anniversary. To be very honest with you, the President Sayonji, when you requested me, why me? I mean, why me? That because the other members of the panel, you have been engaged in such peace activism, my background is entirely different, so I had difficulty understanding why me. But as you said, how to look at peace? You talked about 4 themes. At the closer scrutiny for business activities, for economic activities, they are all relevant. Reverence for life and respect for all differences and gratitude for and coexistence with all of nature. So it has so much common thread, commonality. That's why I'm here. If you look at business management in various ways, I mean, we are confronted with many issues, challenges, and I'm pretty sure you have heard it already. Purpose or mission, purpose and mission of a company. Quite often we discuss all those things. And there are many companies who have the purpose and the mission. Well, as President introduced 2014, I joined Shiseido. Shiseido had at the time 142 years of history. It's one of the very traditional companies in Japan. And it was the first time that they had an outsider as the president. So the board made a request and I became the head. So going ahead with globalization was one of the themes. There was a gathering of 1,000 global employees. I tried to share with them our policies. In advance, I already had some conversation with them. So as a company, what would be the revenues or profits, those financial matters? And then you talk about strategy. We were planning to talk about those things, but relatively young people, European and American, said, wait a minute. They said, we go all the way to Tokyo. I mean, we don't want the CEO, Mr. Otani, to talk about those things. As a business person, what is your philosophy? What is your philosophy? That's what we want to hear. That's why we travel all the way to Tokyo. Right, because you can share with them those numbers. But as a leader, what is expected of me? The raison d'etre of a company. Why do we exist as a company? Day in and day out, why our workers do their work. Demonstrating that is important. That's what employees wanted from me. So about the importance of purpose, it's something that I realized. I mean, it's a cosmetic company, Shiseido is.
We are not in the business of selling cosmetics. But we are in the business of making people happy through the power of beauty という言葉を言ったところが非常にみんなの共感を得て拍手を受けたということがありまして。
That resonated with the employees. They gave us the round of applause. Could I just speak a little longer?
Our main business, through our main business in the form of innovation, we are able to improve the world even better and to bring affluence to people to create better world. Of course, we are addressing environmental and plastic issues, but the positive part of our main business is something that we need to work on. We're sharing that with the employees. If we are able to deliver that, as a result, revenue and the profit, the economic values would follow. With that in mind, we are committed with all the employees in the world. If I may add just one point, as you saw in the video, we have diversity among our employees. This is important, especially Japanese society has challenge of gender, but people with different backgrounds in the world, gender, young generation, senior people, those people with different experiences, people with disabilities, many different kinds of people can work together to deliver ideas together. The performance itself is not always good, but half of the directors are female, and the directors of our Tokyo headquarters, 30% of the people are non-Japanese. So we are having input from different directors to promote diversity in management. Thank you very much. So looking at the video, humans, as the values humans should expect, it should be truth and goodness, and also the beauty. The beauty is not just appearance, but the opposite to that is ugliness. You should live beautifully, and you yourself should be beautiful. I think that is one of the most important values. So not just increasing the revenue of the company, but these values should be shared amongst the employees. I think this is important. Thank you very much for showing the video to us. Dr. Jengudo's lecture, within that lecture, as was mentioned, the world is now having various challenges, and we are now in critical situation, wars, conflicts, and also discrimination, climate change, environmental contamination, and depletion of resources. And she was especially concerned about the extinction of the biological species that was mentioned. So what should be focused would be there are various critical situations, and they are basically from human activities. We need to revisit that. Dr. Goodall said humans have bright intelligence, but why are trying to continue destructive activities to the earth, and what is at the foundation of that? This is something that we need to revisit. And the second laureate, Dr. Avi Laszlo, said that now is the time that humans should shift the gear for sustainable future. This is the last opportunity, and trying to alarm us. So in order to have the breakthrough, what do we need? What can we do as each individual, or the abilities and intelligence that we need to exert? What should they be? From the very beginning, it's going to be a very big theme. But looking at the current environment, what do you feel? And it can be from any other angle, but can you speak about that? Hafsat, looking at the current environment, within your speech, there were some parts you touched upon, but what do you think are the issues? If you can be succinct, that will be helpful.
Yes, I will look to be succinct. And so looking to be succinct, I think we need women's leadership. It's, for me, as simple as that. There was a game in a nursery school between boys and girls. They gave them, the children, pencils. And the boys among themselves were trying to determine who had the longest pencil, the biggest pencil, the strongest pencil. And the girls within themselves were trying to establish the common ground of their pencils. The fact that maybe all the pencils were the same length or the same width or had the same kind of graphite, so the same depth of color. And I think this is the signal that, for perhaps it's the socialization, but it's been over a long period of time. And boys are socialized to compete, and girls are socialized to cooperate. And we're in a world now where we're seeing the limits of competition. You know, in the bid to compete, in the bid to be the best company in the world, you have companies actively destroying our ecosystems. And it's time that we lift the voices, the power of women, so that women can balance this push to compete with the pull to cooperate as a human family, so that we can bridge the challenge that is facing humanity. The 2015 Goi Peace Prize Laureate, who actually adopted me when my mother was killed, Lynn Twist, has a story. She says, the humanity is like a bird with two wings, and one wing is the male wing. The male wing is working very hard because men have leadership everywhere, in companies, as leaders in countries. So it's flapping its wings, but how far will humanity go with just one wing flapping? And she says what we need to have is the women's wing, the wing of women's power, women's voice, what women value, also allowed to given space in the world, so that humanity can fly with both wings. And it's only when humanity is flying with both wings that we will make progress. So the short answer, Iru-san, is that we need to elevate the power of women in the way that Shiseido is doing now, with 50% of the board being women. This is actually one area that I'm aware of. I'm not aware of any other where Japan is not making the strides and showing the leadership that it needs to, which is how to give space to women. We need women as half the leadership in your companies, in your government, at national level, provincial level, local level. Then you have the power of women in your society, and it will balance the power of men. Although I think that as a society, you have a way in which you do show the power of women, because you're not just looking to acquire in an endless battle to own everything. That's not the energy here. But we should do more to bring women's power and leadership in the same visibility that we give to men. And it will allow us, wherever we have women in leadership, climate becomes a priority. Sustainability becomes a priority. Women are doing this already when they're giving the leadership. So we need to give more leadership, and we will find equilibrium.
Thank you so much. Nippon-san, what do you think?
I think in addition to what they shared, one of the big divides we have is between extrinsic and the intrinsic. And I think we have organized people with extrinsic motivators. So what makes human beings unique is that we know how to cooperate at scale, which many other species don't know how to do, and we do that with the help of stories. So we create a common story, like, for example, money is a belief in a belief. That's what allows so much else to circulate. Europe or Asia, these are not lines that are objectively true, but these are sort of stories, and those stories at so many layers, micro and macro, help us cooperate. But I think we can do a lot better. I think we need cooperation 2.0, and 2.0 is one that honors the intrinsic motivators. 1.0 is what we have tried in the business world, which we sort of know is not that effective, because billions of dollars goes into lost productivity, because if you're just extrinsically motivated, it's a hit or a miss. If my deficits meet if 5 of us have to cooperate, we have to figure a way out that my deficits don't meet your deficits, and your deficits don't meet her deficits. If we can figure a way out where my assets meet your assets and your assets meet her assets, it creates a regenerative cycle. So I think the question that I hold is, how do we lead with intrinsic motivators? And working with volunteers, you see a phenomenal gold mine, that you see that there is this nature-funded motivation. that if you were to give, this was research at Harvard, if you were to give people money and you say you have two choices, you go to a mall and buy something for yourself, or you go give it to somebody. The moment you give it to people, even if intellectually you're against that idea, nature rewards you with dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. You will want to do it again. I don't need a PR campaign. I don't need any other, brand ambassadors to convince me that it's good to give. You're just going to give because nature is rewarding you immediately. And so my question would be, like, how do we design a world where we cooperate at scale, but we do it while honoring the intrinsic motivators? I think there's a huge opportunity. Without that, we just won't be able to collaborate that deeply.
Thank you so much. So the chairperson. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question.
今さまざまなジェン・グドールさんなんかが
Dr. Jane
世の
Goodall
中の問題点をね、いろいろ挙げられた
enumerated
スピーチ
some
があったんですけども
challenges in her
やっぱり
acceptance
ゴイハ財団
speech.
としては
But as
やっ
Goi
ぱり一人一人の
Peace
意識が変わらない限
Foundation,
り
unless
表面的な
our awareness of each individual
対処療
changes,
法だけではとても
if
この
we
世の
just
中は良
look
くなら
at
ない
the
だろうという
symptoms,
ことで、
then the world will not
宣
really
言なんかを
get
出した
better.
ん
So
ですけ
Fuji
ど、これから
Declaration
我々が求められる
was against that backdrop. So we need to sort of change our awareness mindset, the set of values, what is needed going forward, what will be needed. May I? Please.
ちょっと
Microphone, please. Can you hear me? Each and every one of us, we shouldn't copycat others. When you want to live and when you want to be happy, what can you do? Your own family, your children, for them to be cheerful and to be able to live happily, what should we do? Those cardinal points, you start with yourself. Because how can your children, your family, others can live happily? Don't become envious of others, about the status, money, materials that you have to eat. Let's see.
あまりにも普通の方々、大勢の方々の
So many people, as I look at so many people, how the way they live, look at what other people are eating, what kind of lunch boxes they are eating. I mean, you are all way of life. What do you really need as a person? If you don't need to eat much, that's fine. If you're a vegetarian, that's fine. Animals, plants, if you like all of them and you eat all of them, that's fine as well. Each and every one of us, how each one lives, I mean, you can take your own responsibility. But if you're poor and the children of poor family, as I look at their parents, of course they want to feed their kids. They want to buy things for their children, but they don't have money. As I think about those people, you may not be able to experience this directly, but in your community, in your neighborhood, I think there are certain communities that have such poor people. You can deliver, you can distribute things. Even if you're poor, but the other family has a newborn baby, and if they need something, you give something to them. It's not about really about what you have to give, but in a real small part, even with just words, how are you doing? Anything that you need from me, such expressions of food, food stuff, money. Other than those things, just sharing your concerns, I think that's really lacking, not just in Japan, but in other parts of the world. So you are happy, you have your family, you have many, many friends, and you have so many stuff. And if you think that's okay, I mean, that's not enough. If you walk in a town, some people might be feeling so lonely and looking just at her feet. If you look at them, what's necessary? First, you can start by asking them how they are.
So before giving money or goods, I always try to talk to those people. Are you feeling well? Or are you okay? If I do that, they will feel that they are not ignored by people. Some people are trying to care them. I think it is important to make sure that they notice it. Thank you very much. How should I say? The first speech that I mentioned, changing the awareness of each individual will be the origin of changing the society. For example, within companies, Mr. Watani, Japanese companies are known to have nature which is difficult to change. And you are trying to have the potential of the employees, and you try to have the corporate reform in order to improve the performance of the company. But how did you reform the awareness of the employees? You showed that video, but what did you focus in order to change the awareness of the employees? Yes, changing the awareness of the people, as Mr. Sionji said, I think that we need to ensure two-way communication, both qualitatively and quantitatively. Dialogue is the theme today, but dialogue, is it really established? Is it just one way, especially you talked about the Japanese companies, but we just have words like giving guidance. And that simply means to convey the message from the management to the employees, and people just obey and accept and understand. And in many cases, they think they are conveying, but they are not understood in most cases. And they need to use their own words. Oftentimes, young employees said that as the Japanese customs, the management are trying to avoid mistake and just try to read the text that is prepared by planning division, for instance. And the young generation just try to turn off, or just young people's ears dispel that. And using your own words, and if the experiences are included, that will be resonating with the young employees. But it should not end there. The audience, by looking at the reaction of the audience, I don't need to receive the reaction on that day, but oftentimes I give homework. In Japanese society, it's the custom. If there are many people, it is very difficult to raise hand to ask questions. We need to change this culture. So I always say, what is your reaction to what I said today? What you thought was positive, please consider how you can apply that to your actions. We will have the similar session again in 2 weeks, and please present. And if I made that kind of cycle, and if I continue this cycle, those employees who have power to think, there are many people who have that capacity and they want to improve the company. There are so many people, but since we do not have two-way communication, they do not consider that as their own problem. So with deep dialogue, we need to work on that. The current society is basically inundated with internet, email, and we have dilution of the human-to-human communication. So after you inaugurated as the president, did you meet thousands of people? Yes, on a cumulative basis, I met 90,000 people. So you had a conversation with 90,000 people. Even with the development of technology, this is the core basics. Yes, it is heart-to-heart communication. And in order to complement that, the technology may be used. So Hafsat, you earlier mentioned about women's empowerment, and you said that it should be a society where women can be more active. So empowerment and encouragement of women, encouraging women, that is being done by WIA, and you have been committed to that activity. So Hafsat, what Mr. Otani said was the change of the awareness within companies, but for women to make contribution in society, in order to achieve that, what kind of awareness change did you work on? If you have any specific examples, that will be helpful.
Thank you for your question, Irisan. My focus really was to help African women entrepreneurs succeed. So if you look around the world, in the data that we have, African women lead the world in terms of the rate at which they'll set up a business. So 1 in 4 African women sets up a business. But we also lead the world at the rate of which our businesses will fail, because they have so many challenges. Sometimes they didn't get as much of an education, so they don't have the skills to manage a business. Many times the cultural practices, the legal practices in their countries means that they don't have the right to inherit land, or even that they face challenges in owning land. And land is the main form of collateral when you want to approach a bank to look for a business loan. So it puts women at a disadvantage. So there's this saying from the Middle East where it says, great success comes from great support. And not surprisingly, women are deeply loved all over the world, but they're not necessarily well supported. Sometimes the culture doesn't really support. There's a way in which we think of women as superwomen, that they'll be able to do so much, even without support. So we expect them to help to taking care of the children. In many parts of Africa, you can't open a tap to get water. You have to go and fetch the water. And this is the work of many women and girls. So we give so many tasks. To cook is really the work of women and girls. So they so much of their hours are taken up, and the support they need to be able to be present to build a business isn't really there. So when I was building the Women in Africa program, our focus was to make sure we close the gaps in skills. So we have this program where we offer training through digital systems across Africa. You will be happy to learn that Coca-Cola Foundation actually gave us about $2 million. That's how we were able to scale to reach 10,000 women a year that we were able to support in about 12 countries. But we work in all 54 African countries because we want to be able to support these women, and we offer training to them where they learn how to develop a business pitch, how to develop a business plan, how to manage their books, basic things. Then we also work with Deloitte, KPMG, some global accounting type companies, consulting companies, to offer mentoring for these women. And then we started giving money because it's so interesting that on the African continent, we have so many programs to train women, so they're overtrained, over-mentored, undercapitalized. They need money. A lot of business people, at the end of the day, for them to actually run their business, they have this running cost, every day money that has to be spent. It's either going to come from their savings or family savings. So we have to help to open that door. And Africa Development Bank was able to get through the G7, which includes Japan, they were able to get 300 million euro to unlock commercial bank funding for women entrepreneurs. And we partner with them in some of the countries to make sure that the women are prepared to present at the bank and know how to speak, what to say, so that they can get the money. Because with the G7 money, it serves as a guarantee to the bank that even though the women don't have land title and they don't have any form of collateral, they should still be able to get money because of this guarantee. So step by step, we're working on concrete solutions to really empower women. But I wanted to, is this the last question you're going to ask me? If it's the last question, I want to share.
いやいや、まだまだありますから。
No, we have many, many more. No, I mean,
But I
don't
want to
worry.
share the saying.
Okay.
There's this wonderful saying in Africa that we have. It's my favorite of all the African sayings. We say, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But when you want to go far, you go together. And because we want these African women to go far, to build businesses that help Africa's economies rise, then we want to go with them with the support in training, mentoring, and capital so they can build up Africa. Thank you.
ありがとうございました。いい言葉ですね。
Thank you so much. I mean, that's a great saying.
すぐ行きたければ
Great
一人
saying.
で行け。
If you want to go fast,
遠く
you
行
go
きたければ
alone.
み
If
んな
you
で行
want
け
to go
ってね、
distance,
素晴
I
らし
mean,
い
you go together. I mean,
が
isn't
な
that
る言葉だと思いま
excellent?
す。
Yeah.
ニップンさんはさっきちょっと
ニップンさん
常務理事からも触れましたけれども、そ
As
の IT で
executive
成功
director
した後
mentioned,
に
I mean, you were so
フルタイム
successful
の
in
ボラン
IT.
ティ
You
ア
became a full-time
になる
volunteer.
わけですよね。
Full-time
それは
volunteer.
なぜかっていうと
And
何か
why
そ
was
の
that?
私の記憶ではホームレスのために
If I remembered
なんか手伝って
correctly,
あ
for
げ
the
たら
homeless
すごく
people,
喜ばれて
you
やっぱそ
helped
の
them,
喜び人の
and
喜ぶ
they were so
のが
pleased,
もの
and you
自分
saw
にとっ
that.
て大きな
And
喜
for
びだった
you,
っていうのは
that was
スタートだった。
your
でも
joy
それ
as
で
well. I
会
mean,
社を
that
辞め
started,
て
but you left
フ
the
ルタイムボ
company
ランティ
and
ア
you
になっ
became
た
a
ってすごい
full-time
まあ
volunteer.
ただ
That's
その時
impressive.
に
But at the
やっぱり
time,
彼は感じたのが
again,
人間はこれは富士宣
you
言
must
と
have
非
felt
常に
it.
共通
I
す
mean,
る部
there's
分なん
just
ですけ
so
ど
much
人間は本
commonality with
来
Fuji
愛
Declaration.
あるいは優しさ
Love,
というものを持ってる
kindness, that's
それ
something
が
we have.
引き出されることが
But
社会を良くすることなんだっ
if
ていう
you
ことを
could sort
言わ
of
れてで
get it
4
out
人
from
で始
people,
めた
you could make
そのサ
the
ービススペースっていうボ
world
ランティア
better.
活動が
Service
今
space
60
started
万
with
人の
4
ね
persons, but
あ
now
の
you
メン
now
バ
have
ーになってるっていう
600,000
これは
people.
私すごいと思いますどうして
Oh,
これだ
that's
け
so
多くの人
impressive.
たちの
Why
そ
so
のなんていうん
many
ですか優し
people?
さ
Their
っていうものを
kindness,
こ
their
うが開花
gentleness,
されてったのかって
how
そ
they
の辺をちょっと教え
flourished,
ていただけます
how you
か
were able to do so. Please share that story with us.
And I want to try to bridge it to what both of them also said around leadership. I think as a culture, we have not really created the core competencies for leading with relationships. We lead with transactions. And that's known as leadership, and that's very toxic. And when you come in and you say, this is toxic, we sort of put Band-Aids on it. But even if you want to lead with relationships, we actually don't have the core competencies to do that. And I think if we develop them, we will realize that we have incredibly regenerative resources available to us anywhere, everywhere. I have never gone to any place in the world where you go, like 3 random people from here could come up on stage and tell a story of an act of kindness and ask everyone, how many people want to engage with me like this? You will at least have 50 people doing acts of kindness outside. They are motivated in this way. But then you go in and you say, well, how do I create a CSR budget and hire somebody else and then put it into a program and create a 10-year strategy? You lose all of that, right? So how can we design for those initial conditions where it's so vibrant and regenerative? And so we think of it as we created this word called laddership, not leadership. So leading with transactions is traditional leadership. Leading with relationships is laddership. But it's not just like a word, right? So if you were to go in and you say, if we lead with relationship, the question isn't that we are just related at me-to-me level. It is that you and all your relations are connecting to me and all my relations. And when we connect as we to we, something new arises, right? So if you just were to go and ask a traditional leader, what do you see here? A person trained to optimize for transactions, they will say, I see hydrogen and oxygen. A ladder will go in and say, wow, if they can be combined in this specific way, we will create water. And that water is what the world needs. And so I think so a very simple way, I would go, many people come to service space and say, look, I understand that there's a gold mine, 600,000 volunteers, but that's not even the most amazing part. It's not service space. It's everywhere. It's anywhere. It's here. I could easily come up and tell a story and we would have 25 ready volunteers because this is just how love works. Why aren't we designed for that? And you say, well, what are the core competencies that are lacking? So one big difference between a leader and a ladder. And you can ask anyone this, and this is when people come to service space, say, I want to learn laddership. I would ask them, I would say, go in any circle, and I would say, what do you see? A person optimized for transactions sees very little of what's there. A person optimized for relationships and leading with the gifts of emergence sees so much more in the same place. So when you go to traditional B schools, we are training leaders to plan and execute. Right? This is the plan that's handed down to you and you execute. It's even if you're the CEO, the board is telling you that, and your metrics are designed in that way. But if you were to actually be a ladder, the question would be, can you search and amplify? And the three Sanji sisters are amazing examples of ladders, right? They would go in and they would say, well, where are the patterns of positive deviance? How do I amplify them? Not for the sake of this hydrogen or this oxygen molecule, but for the sake of this new property of water that arises. And I think that's a core competency that we're just lacking in the world. We ran into it by accident just because we wanted to preserve this love vibe, right? Like, just go do it. And I think what we saw is that you run up against systemic blocks, including money, which is aimed to fundamentally transactionalize something which is profoundly relational and emergent. So when we funnel everything down and we create these systems, I think we limit human potential. So I think there's an opportunity to think way out of the box and see what kind of a new design and a paradigm we can create. So maybe that's a little bit too far out, but but I would love to, I think it kind of relates to what you're talking about, leading with the divine feminine. I think what Masami-san has been talking about, and actually Otani-san, you were also sort of alluding to that as well. So I think we need to create more momentum around these different core competencies.
Thank you very much. Mr. Otani, do you have anything to say? This was really inspiring. You mentioned about collective heart intelligence, CHI, and that is the capacity of the individuals who have different capacities. And I just remember that about the collectiveness. More than 10 years ago, in Kyoto, students were trying to stimulate each other in order to improve society. And they asked me to serve as an advisor. And there were about 1,000 students from Kyoto and Osaka, and there was a place called the Otani Hall, and they came to me and they said, please give me the class of Michael Osando, and looking at that, I try to look at the program, not just giving one-way lecture, but I try to step down from the podium to have more interaction. Because they were more conscious, and many people just tried to raise hand voluntarily, I wondered whether this was really Japan. And some people said, I want to change my future from tomorrow. And the female student said, weeping, I will completely change my life from tomorrow, and I will be serious in what I'm going to do. So this was a little bit threatening environment. But after that, it was so heated. And then there were several groups, and they came to Tokyo, and they said that in order to improve the world, they want to do something. And they went to Bangladesh and participated in Grameen project. I saw the picture in the agricultural village, feeding milk to babies. So just like listening to both of you, the younger generation. Well, I'm not saying that the only young generation will be able to do this, but especially the younger generation who will play the part in the future, we need to establish environment. And I think we have the mission to do so. I just recall that just by listening to you. Impressive. Mr. Otani, it seems like you are so popular by the overseas universities, Harvard, Dartmouth, and Columbia. You were asked to deliver lectures, partly because the values of Japan, they are being evaluated in the world. Yes, until a while ago, unfortunately, when I go to global conferences, unfortunately, we had no topics on Japan. In 1981, I was in New York, and back then, Japan as #1 was the case. So I always received question of how would you do this in Japan? But that became Japan passing, and it became Japan nothing. And then in a certain international conference where Henry Kissinger was present, I was one of the members. And they only talked about China and India. And I said, wait a minute, there is something that Japan is able to offer. That was my role. But now the geopolitical situation is changing. And around this time last year, I delivered a lecture at Columbia University. Many people had keen interest. For how can we have the coexistence of society and the companies, and the leadership style of Japan, and the Gemba, the high level of quality of field employees. And actually, December 3rd, I will be speaking in front of 300 students, and this will be a good opportunity to communicate about Japan.
That's excellent. Thank you. The theme of this dialogue is making a new leap towards peace. There are many keywords, but the power of the youth. We need to empower them. And through various activities, we meet many young people. Nagano-san, you are also engaged in activities supporting great activities of the youth. Takeuchi-san, the Laureate, is there for you, those youth activities, the power of the youth. The power of the youth. I think that's one of the very important points. And Dr. Goodall, she talked about the power of youth as a kind of a hope. From the chairperson, any message about the youth? What are your expectations? Well, what can we do for the young people? How can we support the young people? I mean, if you look at our foundation's activities, of course, there are many projects to support them.
日本人とかそういう分けるわけじゃないですけれ
I'm
ど
not
も、
just trying to
女
pinpoint
性
Japanese from the
女性は
rest of the world,
自
but
分
if you look at
の考
women,
えとか自分の
their
持ってる
own
良さとか
thinking,
自分の
their
長所とか、
goodness,
そういう
their
自分はこれができ
strength,
るというも
that
の
you can
が
do
ある
something,
にもかかわらず、
despite
お
the
料
fact
理で
that
も
they
そうで
have,
す、
I
子育
mean,
てもそうです、何
cooking,
でもそうで
child
す。
rearing,
でも
the many,
自
many
分
things
は
that they
当
can
た
do,
り前
but
だし、人はそれは
people
みん
take
なや
that
って
for
るから
granted. Other
ど
people
う
are
って
also
ことない
doing.
と。
So this
自
is
分自
nothing
身をとても
special. I
卑猥
mean,
に思って、自
you
分
you
は
just
普通
try
の
to
ただ
look
の
down
人
on
と
yourself.
思う
You
方が
tend
日
to
本人
think
が多
that
い
you
で
are
す。
just
でも
ordinary
そうじゃ
person.
ない
So
んです。
many Japanese women
一
do
人
that,
一
but
人はみんな違って
that's
ま
not
す。
true. Each and
一人
every
一
one
人
of
が
us,
同
it's
じ赤
different.
ちゃ
I
ん
mean,
を
unique.
育てるんでも
I mean, you are not
教わって
raising the
育て
same
るのと
baby.
教わって最初は育て上げます。
In the
私も全然
beginning,
赤ちゃん
of course, you
生ま
are
れた時
taught.
は
When
育て方
my
知らない
baby
から
was
母か
born,
ら
I didn't
そう
know anything. So
教えてもらったり、お友
I,
達が教えてもら
my
ったり
mother
し
and
てまし
other
たけど、
friends taught
だ
me
ん
how
だ
to
んその
take care
自
of
分自
babies.
身にその
But
女性でも
gradually,
男性でも
be it
その自
men
信がつ
or
いてくる
women,
と
as you
何
become
でもないことで
confident,
もできるようになるし、
I mean, you'll
ま
be
してや
able to
またも
do
う一歩でも
many
二歩でも
things
進んで
and
自分
make
で
a step
学
or
問
two
とか
steps
その
forward,
学力とかそういう学校の
academic
途中で
studies
挫折しちゃ
or
って行ってないから自分はダメなんだ
just
と
because you are
自
dropped
分
out,
で
you
自分
dropped
のこ
out
と
from
を
school,
そ
you
の
just think that you are
そのなんていうのか
not
採決して
strong
しまっ
enough.
て
You just
自分は
pass a judgment
通用
on
しないとか
yourself
他の
that
人と
you're
相談
not
しないとか
marketable
自分
or
自身で自分の生き方とか
employable.
自分の能力とか
The
自
way
分の
you
できる
live,
ことを否
your
定してしまって
competence, you
る
just
これがもう
deny
と
all
って
those
も
things.
良くないこ
I
と
mean, that's so
ですから
bad.
もったいないなもったいないな
You
と
could do
私
much,
たち
much
はもう
better
み
than
んな
that.
い
I
い人
always
私
think, I
は
mean, they are
会う
all
人た
nice
ちはみん
people.
な
The
いい人
people
な
that
んで
I
すけれども
encounter, they're
い
all
ざ私
nice
から離れ
people.
て他の人と
But
質問がすると黙って自分の持
when
って
there
る
are others, they just remain
私に聞かせた
silent.
聞
And
かせていただ
all
いた
the
答えが出るけど
great
それを
things
出せ
that
ばいいの
they
に
shared
全
with
然
me, they
黙
wouldn't
って
share
しま
that
うと
with
いう
others.
日
They would just
本
fall
人だから
silent.
とか外国人だから
Just
ではなく
because it's not
生
really
き
because
方だと
it's
思う
because
本
you are
人が自分自
Japanese
身
or
に自信が
foreigner.
ない
It's about
自信
your
がないま
confidence,
ん
the
ま
way
大
you
人に
live.
なってしまう
I mean, you are
で
not
ある
confident
程
and
度
you
のこ
grow
と
up
はお
as an
料理もで
adult
きるし
and you
勉
can
強
do
もで
some
きるし
cooking,
好き
you
だか
can
ら
do some
だけれど
studies because you
なん
like
か
doing
人
them.
と話す
But
ると
somehow
自
when
信
you're
がないという
conversing with
やっぱ
others,
そ
you are
の
not really
自信を
confident.
つけてあげ
So
られる、その勇気づけてあげら
to
れる
encourage
そ
other
のまあ
the
さっき言った
women,
言葉とか
the
そう
words
い
of
う
encouragement,
まあだから若者たちは
supporting
本当は
those.
能力も持
So
ってる
the
んだけど
young
それ
people,
が
they
出て
have
こない。それをどう
competency,
やって
but
ね
they
や
are
っぱ
not
り
really
勇気
coming
づけ
out
て
from them.
あげられる
And
か
how
って
can
い
we
うところなん
support
でしょうね。
them? I mean, it's such a waste when you have such great, great potential. And the potential is great. All of you who are here, when you listen to things like this, I'm pretty sure you want to get better. You know, because what we say or the stories we share with you, you know, but in your own words, you can't express them because it's too hard, because you are incompetent. But you have your knowledge.
信頼できて、また
But
日本人同士が
if you
ダ
can
メじゃ
really
ない
trust
あなた
others,
の
and
話さっぱりわかんない
among the Japanese people, you might say, oh, you're not making sense, you are not really saying anything that's meaningful. When you hear such words, you just feel that you are no good. When you live, I want you to really be confident. I mean, you have come thus far. You have power, this will that you want to live, you have that power. If you have that power, I'm pretty sure you have much, much, much more potential.
まあ だから
That's
さっき
how
の
I
エイジの
feel.
言葉にもあったけど、まあ
As you
内
already
側が
heard in
な
the
きゃ外側
words
変
of
わりませんよってい
wisdom,
う
I mean,
おそらく
you
ね
have to
そういう
change
ことにもつ
the
ながるん
inner
でしょう。
side, otherwise there will be no
い
change
ろんな
in the
まあち
outer
ょっと
world.
ね本当はいろんなこと聞きた
I
いんだけ
mean,
ども
I wish
時
I
間
could
も押
ask
して
you
ま
so
し
many
て
more things, but we are running
平
out
和
of
に向け
time.
て
So
飛
towards
躍すると
peace,
いう上でね
making a
つ
new
な
life
がりっ
towards
ていうこと
peace,
が僕はものすご
connections,
く大事だというふうに思っ
interconnections,
てて
or
まあ
partnership. I
それは
think
私
that's
のさっ
so
きの話の中
important.
にもあったけ
As I
ど
mentioned
私の
before,
まあ言葉で言えば
in
平和に
my
向けてネットワーキングをしていくということになるわけですけど、本当の意味での心のつながりという意
But
味
in
にお
true
いて、
sense, in the
これ話し
interconnection
出すとたくさ
with
んな
others,
るんだけど、さっき
there's so
ニ
many
ップン
things.
さんがね、
But Nippon-san,
プレ
you
ゼン
mentioned
スピーチの中で
in
や
your
っぱり
presentation, in
AI
your
とか
speech,
IT
you
と
talked
か
about
ね、そういう
AI
テク
and
ノロジーを
IT.
そういうそのなんていうんですかね、意識
That
変革とかつな
technology
がりと
for
いうものに
change of
つまりただこれはすご
awareness
くリスキーな
or
ことで、
transformation? How can we use them? I mean,
顕著な
there
例と
can
し
be
てこの間の
many
兵
risks.
庫県知事な
The
知事選なんか
governor
でも
of Hyogo, for
通して
instance,
すご
through
い勢いで
SNS,
まあある意味でのクリティカル
very
マスが
rapidly, the
こう
critical
短期間
mass
でね
was
出来
reached
上がって
within
た
such a short period of
それはいい
time.
とか悪いとか言うつ
I'm
もりは
not
ないんだ
saying
けど、
that's
つまり
good or
そういうも
bad,
のが
but
いい方向に使えればも
when
の
it's
すごくね
used in a
そ
positive
の人
way,
間の意識改革とかそ
in
のつながりに
reforming
結びつ
awareness
く
for
が悪い方に
partnership,
使われたら
it
これは
could be
もう
great. But if it's used for bad
人類も
purpose,
破滅の方向に
I mean,
行
the
く可能性が十分
humankind
あるっていう
may
のを
actually start the
これ
fall.
結
I
構
mean, just as a
大きなテーマなん
possibility.
ですけ
I mean,
ど
this is
ち
a
ょっと
pretty
今
big
同時に
theme.
感じられてるかっていうの
How
をち
do
ょ
you
っと聞きたい
feel, Nippon-san?
I will even try to bridge it with the last question on youth. I think one of the things that really inspires me about youth is their openness. And one of the greatest things that we need to be open about is to embrace change. It's very scary, and many things have not served us well when things have changed. And so there's a natural fear, but what inspires me about young people is their willingness to adapt the ancient with the modern. That we have not just the old story, right? This is like the very ancient values. How are they going to be in circulation today? I think that's a question. It's a messy question, but I think we have to go into the muddy waters to create the lotus. And I think we have to ask the question today around AI, around the ancient values, that how will we keep the sacred alive in an AI world where we're creating more data. In the time of this panel, we have created more data from the beginning of dawn to 2003, a couple times over. In this noise, how will we keep the signal alive? And I think we have to struggle with that question. We created, for instance, we have to ask these questions, I think, of uncommon translations. Today, one of the big issues we face is that we don't have translation capacities. Now, I'm not talking about Japanese to English, right? Human language to human language, but engineering to arts, business to humanities, head to heart. All these things are completely severed. And so we don't have a way to bridge these, and we don't have a way to translate. And the current systems are actually facilitating the siloing of all of these sectors. So in that world, can we imagine something like AI, which the head of Google says has more profound implications? He went on record saying this, has more profound implications than the invention of electricity. So if we are at ground zero of something like this, can we imagine, with the heart of a young person, with an open heart, open mind, to say, what are the new ways in which we can translate relationships? And we have been experimenting in a lot of different ways. One simple example is that we created a bot with all the sacred scriptures of all the world's religions. And so if you were to Google and say, what is a faith-based response to climate change? It would take you hours to figure out, click on all those links, figure out where it's at, and now you go to this AI and it immediately tells you. So what other ways are there? Like, what do we imagine? We are experimenting with a whole bunch of things. We created a compassion bot that if I'm feeling confused on a Tuesday and I ask my inner self, well, what would compassion do? Like, can an AI help me respond to that? But not in a universal way, but maybe in a different way for each 5 of us. Right? Like, can we have different expressions of compassion? So we have been playing with this idea, not of large language models, but of small language models. Not of one specific one, but of different data commons, like a field of common shared repository, where I can say, I will take the Gandhi bot and the Fukuoka bot and the Hafsat, data set, and all of Hafsat's talks, and I want that field to respond how I should be compassionate to my dog today when I have to debate whether I euthanize him or not. So I think there's so many ways we can imagine this, and I think it's a call to our creativity, and it's also a call to step into the fear, to step into the muddy waters and say, how will we birth, how will we make the sacred, how will we keep the sacred alive, how will we revive the ancient in this kind of a world? So yeah, I think we should all be working on that and volunteering together. Thank you.
やっぱり可能性、すごく大きな可能性
Yes,
があるんだろう
that's
な
a
っ
huge
ていうふうに。
potential, I believe. And Nippon, you just said about philosophers and ancient philosophers and the modern religious people, and there are thousands of wisdom being gathered, and he is actually addressing on them. So the use of AI, if that can be used for a good direction, he mentioned about the deep data against big data, so more profoundly in the heart of the people, goodwill, how can that be activated? Maybe to that direction, AI may be used, but if it is used for negative direction, there could be risk. Well, I actually want to have double the time we had, but as the time is pressing, from each person, we would like to have the last message, if possible, your expectation to the foundation as well. So can you briefly give the message starting from Hafsat?
Thank you very much. In the year 2050, there will be 4.8 billion people in Asia and 4.2 billion in Africa. To give you some perspective, the current population in Africa is 1.4 billion. So in around 25 years, 26 years, Africa will more than double to 4.2 billion. We're even looking, I think, even at tripling, no? 4.2 billion. By the 2100, because Asia's population is going down and Africa continues to go up, Africa will be 40% of the world by the next millennium and will only increase by another 200 million, so it will be 4.4 billion people. We know that humanity actually started in Africa. And by that next millennium, much of humanity will be in Africa. I think that's an opportunity because the African way recognizes humanity and celebrates humanity. Over dinner last night, Maki reminded me of the African philosophy called Ubuntu, which is that I am human through you. It's a system that recognizes that our humanity depends on our interconnection. And I look forward to that time when 40% of the world will be people that understand this. But I also worry that will there still be the poverty and disease and the challenges that we see in Africa today then, which would mean that much of humanity would be suffering? Or would it be a new day where we're taking care of each other and we're all rising together? My hope and message to the Goi Peace Foundation and to all of you that are here is that it all comes down to us. What the world will look like in 2050, what it will look like in 2100, really will depend on how we live together and share with each other. And I think that the most important currency in the world is not dollars, it's not yen, it's not yuan, it's not rupee, it's kindness. Masami-san reminded us that when we reach each other, when we see somebody in need, she says she's asked the person, how are you doing? I always have my wallet. I have a smaller wallet than this, and I put coins. And when I see these people that I'm going to have to give the coins to, I feel sometimes a sense of irritation, like, I also need this money. And when I give them the money, I don't look at them because I want to quickly give them and go. Masami-san, may God bless you. May your all from today till the day you die, may you just be surrounded by blessings and kindness and protection. because you reminded me of something my parents always tried to teach me, and that is that we have to take care of each other. And even if I feel overwhelmed, I'm going to remember what you said, and I'm going to hand the money and say to my sister, my brother, I will say, how are you? How is everything? I hope you're okay. And I want all of us to do that. It's a small thing we can do every day, and if we keep doing it, in 2050, in 2100, no matter where humanity is, they will know that they're protected and they will know that they're loved. Thank you.
ありがとうございました。いいメッセージ。
Well, thank you so much. That's a great message.
一言
Nippon-san,
最後のメッセージいただけますか。
closing message, please. Nippon?
I think I would say one thought that came up when I watched your video is, what is a beautiful thought? We have ideas of what a beautiful body is, but what is a beautiful thought? And what happens when beautiful thoughts start to synergize? And I think these are thoughts of compassion, but it's just a question that I'm holding. I think another thought comes up when Masami-san was talking about building a relationship. How do we create systems that allow us to regenerate that love? That it shouldn't be a bubble. It shouldn't be a function of privilege that you can give. That generosity is not a luxury sport. It is our inheritance of being alive. And how do we make sure the systems don't strip that out? I was at a gathering once, and they gave some flowers, and it was a bunch of students. And I said, you know, I opened up the bouquet, and I said, everyone take a flower and give it to a stranger. Give it to a teacher you haven't appreciated, or a cook, or a janitor, or a fellow student. I finished giving, I ran out of flowers, they brought me more flowers, and at the end it was so touching because this 9-year-old comes up and says, that was so amazing, can I get another flower? I think it doesn't take a PhD to understand all of this. But we have created these systems, and so for me, I think, how do we bring that out? And to Goi Peace, the email I sent yesterday, I think it is no longer about critical mass. I think, because everyone wants critical mass for their causes, it's about critical yeast. Yeast is the small thing that you use to start bread, right? Flour by itself with water, salt, sugar, is not going to create bread. It happens because of the small yeast. I think the work of the Goi Peace Foundation for the last 25 years has been of yeast. And I think if it embraces that and allows all these breads to come together, I think a different kind of possibility is there. So thank you so much.
ありがとうございます。いいメッセージ。いや僕も今までずっと
Thank you. That's a great
クリ
message.
ティ
Yeah,
カルマス
critical
という
mass,
ことで
critical
言い
mass.
続けてき
I
たん
have
だけど、
been
やっぱり
saying
今
that
日
all
今
the
回
time, but
彼
today,
にクリティカルイーストってい
yeah,
う
you
ことを
mentioned
言われて、
critical yeast.
なんか
Now,
すごい
that's
その方向で
yeah, to that
我々何ができるの
direction.
かなっ
What
ていうことを
can we
改めて考
possibly
えて
do?
み
Once
たいなという
again,
ふう
I
に思い
really
ま
would
した。
like to
あり
think
がとうご
about
ざいま
this.
した。
So thank you so much for your
魚
great
谷さん
message.
からも最後メッセージ一言いただけますか。
Otani-san, one final message, please.
冒頭申し上げましたように、
As I shared with you at the
ちょ
outset,
っと企業の人間声を送るってこういう
I'm a
ショックなことだな
business
と思い
person.
な
I
がら
mean,
ですね、
I'm
言
really
ったんですが、
different from the rest of you, but that's how I
こういう
felt
平和財団と
initially.
いう
But
の
Goi
はですね、
Peace
平和という
Foundation,
ことのこういう大
about
きな
the
意味合いの中
peace
に、
in the
企業や
great
経済が
significance
果
of
たす役割非常に
the
多いと。
roles that
冒頭の
businesses can
ネットワ
play.
ー
That's
クということ
pretty
で、確かに
significant.
経済というのがあ
Initially, you
ったわけ
talked
です
about
ね。
this
世界をやっぱり
the
豊かにしてい
network
くのも
and
経済
business
の
is
役
part
割
of
でも
it.
ある
The
ので、
economy plays a role
先
in
ほどの
enriching the
グ
society
ドルさんの
further.
ビデオなんかで
And
も、
as I
企
looked
業
at
が非常
Dr.
にこ
Goodall's
うですね、
video,
自然破壊とか、まあ、良くない
companies
こと
are
をしていると
engaged
いう
in
最後の
bad
話が
things
外
like
国に
destroying the
注目されてて、
environment,
確かにその問
and
題はあるんで
that's
すが、
true.
やっぱり
That's
経済もしっ
that's
か
a
りとこう
challenge.
平和
But the
を築いて
economy,
いくと
to
いう
build
こ
the
とに
peace,
関わっていかなければ
the
ならないのも
economy
事実だ
must
と
get
思うんですね。
involved in
まあ
that
そんな意味
endeavor.
で、
That's a
実は
fact. So in that sense,
1980年代、
in
アメリ
1980s,
カですとか、まあ、
the United
欧米の
States
企
and
業
the,
では、
the major companies in
企
the
業は
Western
株主のため
world,
に存在する。
the companies exist
真剣に
for
みんな
shareholders. I mean, seriously,
で、
people
な
are
んとな
talking
くちょっ
about
とこ
that.
う日本から来たことが違和
Somehow
感があ
I
ったん
was,
ですが、
since being a
まあ最近
Japanese,
は
I
ご承知
I
のよう
didn't
に、
feel very comfortable with this. But now, multi-stakeholder capitalism, that's the word they use for community, for employees, and for the society. You have to deliver values. You have to provide them with values. So capitalism is now going through a corner. So it's being sort of revised, but still, there's a long way to go. If you look at environmental problems, that's caused partly by companies. But for the economy, in a good way, to better the world, I mean, they can and they must participate. Purpose. The greater good is my favorite word. The greater good. It's something that we really have to revisit and then engage in economic activities. I think that would lead to the promotion of peace. Initially, I felt almost embarrassed to be here, but I also felt that this is so important. So my expectations from the Goi Peace Foundation, that you already saw in the slide, please involve the business people, the economic people as well. Thank you so much.
We just exceeded the time, but we would like to have the closing remarks. And now we would like to conclude the dialogue session. May we ask for the round of applause to the panelists today. Thank you very much. Once again, we would like to have the round of applause to the panelists today.
So
lastly, we would like to have the closing remarks. So from the organizer, there will be closing remarks.
Well, from the stage, I have been watching all of you, the audience, all of you who have really been listening to us attentively. Thanks to all of you. You wanted to come here, and you were interested in listening to us. I could really feel that myself. I don't even know what to say. I was just so moved. On the other hand, so many of you, I mean, you with such high intellect level in your own with your just a small network. I mean, it's such a shame. I mean, there's so many of you. When you come here, and you can, if you can just say words of encouragement, and if you could just say all those things, I mean, we can really better the world looks. We are running out of time, so the executive director, I mean, it's such a precious time of your weekend, and thank you so much for sharing your precious time with the Goi Peace Foundation. I really feel grateful as I listen to all of you for a new, better world, peaceful world. We are getting closer. I couldn't help feeling that myself. 2070, the Lynn Twist, who was the laureate, when a woman delivers a child, a baby, at the very last moment, that's when the anxiety becomes stronger. But when there's a midwife, that stress, that anxiety is alleviated, and then that facilitates the birth of a new life, the birth of a baby. So the work of the midwife, how to create a better, peaceful world, what's the role of the midwife? As we already heard in today's speeches, in your own place, you are sense of values, you value that. And as Hafsat said, a more peaceful future. There might be some sacrifice, but create that future, that strong will, and then gentle love. No matter where you are, create that love. And Wotani-san said, the beauty you should value. Just one word, just one word. All of you, all of you, you have power, you have power. Those of you who are here, you have so much power. So be confident, be confident. I mean, you stick to your life the way you live. I can just envisage the staff getting angry, and we are really being overboard next year. No, November 29th, this same place, we are going to hold this forum once again. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you once again next year. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. With this, we would like to close the 25th Anniversary Goi Peace Foundation Forum.